In the grand annals of Arcalusia's history, Adeshan stood as a towering figure. She held dual titles: Imperial Grand General, commanding legions that numbered in the millions, and Duke of Arcalusia, a noble title earned through valor and leadership. Her legend was etched in the heroic deeds she'd performed, saving countless lives when giants ravaged the land. But now, in the dim light of a somber chamber, Ronan witnessed a stark contrast to that legendary figure. Adeshan lay before him, her once mighty presence reduced to a frail shadow. She seemed to fade away before his very eyes, like a fragile wisp in a storm. "Grand General Adeshan," Ronan murmured, his brow furrowing with concern. The sight of her condition weighed heavily upon him. Adeshan's uniform, once a symbol of her authority and strength, now hung in shreds, stained with crimson hues that spoke of battle and suffering. Her arm, torn and mangled, still seeped blood, a grim reminder of the violence she had endured. "Ronan, a corporal, right?" Adeshan's voice was strained as she struggled to speak, her body trembling with the effort. Despite her weakened state, her gaze, like smoldering embers amidst the wreckage, found its mark on Ronan. "By any chance, what's the reason for this?" Ronan inquired. "Wait, let me ask first," Adeshan replied. After several deep breaths, Adeshan spoke again. "Ahayute?" "I killed him," Ronan confessed. "Are you sure?" Adeshan's voice carried a hint of disbelief. "There's a body not far from here," Ronan affirmed. "Is that so?" Adeshan's expression twisted as she processed the information. A single tear rolled down her dirtied cheek. Gazing at the sky, she mumbled in a weak voice, "He's dead." Grimacing as she forced her legs to support her, Adeshan rose. Ronan quickly rushed to her side, offering support. "Thank you," Adeshan murmured, acknowledging Ronan's assistance. "It was something that needed to be done," Ronan stated firmly. "I have nothing left. You are the hero, the one who saved the world, the true hero," Adeshan acknowledged with a hint of resignation in her voice. "Damn it, hero, or whatever. Let's start with stopping the bleeding. Your wounds are deep," Ronan replied, frustration evident as he observed Adeshan's injuries. Ronan muttered a curse under his breath as he glimpsed the extent of her arm's injuries. Beneath the torn flesh, white bone peeked out. Tenderly clasping her shoulders, Ronan gently guided her back against the wall once more. "I'm done for. There's no hope," Adeshan murmured despondently. "What? You called me by my first name asking for help," Ronan remarked, his voice tinged with surprise. "I only wanted to know the monster's fate. As I said, I have no hope left," Adeshan explained, her tone resigned. "Still, we have to try our best," Ronan insisted. Ronan removed his shirt, revealing a well-trained body adorned with scars reminiscent of a wild beast. He began tearing the shirt into strips, intending to use them as makeshift bandages. "You are quite stubborn," Adeshan observed quietly. "I'll tell you beforehand, it's going to hurt a lot. You might scream or even faint," Ronan warned. "It doesn't matter. If you're going to do it quickly," Adeshan replied, steeling herself for the pain to come. "Understood," Ronan acknowledged. Using the torn cloth, Ronan tightly bound the areas that needed staunching. Each time the fabric cinched, blood pooled and seeped from the wounds. "Definitely. I'm feeling a bit better. The dizziness is less intense than before," Adeshan remarked, her voice tinged with relief. "That's a relief," Ronan replied, his tone reflecting a mixture of concern and gratitude. The two of them sat side by side on a rock, the makeshift bandages wrapped around Adeshan's body seeming to have improved her complexion compared to earlier. "I never thought you wouldn't let out a scream," Ronan commented, a hint of surprise in his voice. "Being a Grand General isn't just about looks," Adeshan replied with a faint smile. "Seems like you have more of a sense of humor than I expected," Ronan remarked, his exhaustion evident in the tilt of his head. Was it because he had transformed into a human with aura? His recovery speed seemed unusually fast. "But it seems it should have been you who received treatment, not me," Adeshan remarked, concern etched in her features. Ronan sat there, clad only in his pants, his complexion worsening with each passing moment. Unlike Adeshan, he seemed to be deteriorating rapidly. Adeshan watched him spit out blood as if it were saliva, clicking her tongue in frustration. "Tusk, at this rate you're just adding to the death toll on the journey to the afterlife," Adeshan scolded him. "The Grand General might still survive if the rescue team arrives in time," Ronan countered, his voice strained with pain. "Isn't it the same for you?" Adeshan inquired, her brow furrowing with worry. "No, I won't make it," Ronan replied, his tone resigned. "What basis do you have to jump to that conclusion?" Adeshan pressed further. "Well, when I heard the General's voice and stood up, I felt it. I'm going to die," Ronan explained, a faint smile creeping onto his lips, leaving Adeshan perplexed. "Then why are you smiling when you're saying you'll die soon?" Adeshan questioned, puzzled by Ronan's demeanor. "Well, I actually feel really empty. It's like I'm about to fade away for real," Ronan confessed, his voice tinged with resignation. Ronan lowered his gaze to his waist, where his sword should have been. However, the scabbard appeared empty, the sword likely lost during his charge. Despite the loss, he felt no stronger emotions than a sense of emptiness. "At least it's meaningful to be able to die like that. Not regrettable enough to lose the sword," Adeshan remarked. "You're quite an odd person," Ronan observed, a hint of amusement in his voice. The two of them exchanged various stories, each revealing unexpected facets of their personalities. Adeshan displayed a much more flexible way of thinking than Ronan had anticipated. Ronan was taken aback when he discovered that she, like him, came from a commoner background. "If you were to survive and return, is there something you'd like to do?" Adeshan inquired. "I'm going to die," Ronan reiterated. "I said if," Adeshan reminded him. "Well, I want to go to the 100 Rose Nights and the sea, completely naked," Ronan replied, a wistful tone coloring his words. "That's a pretty good dream. Anything else?" Adeshan prompted. "Well, I'd like to attend the academy," Ronan confessed. "The Night Academy?" Adeshan clarified. "Anywhere. I want to learn aura, use magic for once." Ronan trailed off, his voice tinged with longing. "Was it true that the aura transformation wasn't successful? And how did you actually manage to defeat a Hayute?" Adeshan inquired. "He got stuck to me, so I cut his wings off. After that, it wasn't anything special. Deflect his attacks, dodge, and attack when there's an opening," Ronan explained. If he had heard about that, he would have fumed and fainted. "The Grand General should apologize to all the hard-working warriors," Adeshan remarked, with a hint of humor. "By the way, General," Ronan interjected. "Yeah," Adeshan prompted. "Our comrades, while they might be crude, were still pretty decent individuals," Ronan continued. "Why are you suddenly saying something like that?" Adeshan questioned, intrigued. "Could you use your authority as a Grand General to take care of the bodies? The regulations state that the bodies of fallen disciplinary unit members are either left as they are, or collected and burned. But this time, if it wasn't for those bastards, we probably wouldn't have won," Ronan requested. "Corporal," Adeshan responded, acknowledging Ronan's plea. "Please, it would be even better if we could set up some kind of memorial monument," Ronan added earnestly. Ronan's pupils gleamed with a peculiar crimson hue like twilight. After gazing at his eyes for a while, Adeshan nodded belatedly. "Thank you, Grand General," Ronan expressed his gratitude. If you make a promise like that, I'll have to find a way to survive somehow," Adeshan mused, a flicker of determination in her eyes. "I'll make it, if only for the sake of those who died, even..." Ronan struggled to speak, his voice barely a whisper. Suddenly, blood spurted out of Ronan's mouth, an alarming amount that caught Adeshan off guard. Confusion clouded her features for the first time. "Hey, snap out of it," Adeshan urged, her voice tinged with concern. "The rescue team should be here by tomorrow. Just until then." Ronan managed to utter between gasps for air. "Corporal, get up," Adeshan insisted, prodding his leg, but there was no response. You should return and participate in the improving ceremony according to the system, Adeshan suggested, her gaze fixed on Ronan's profile. His teeth were audibly clashing together, and his long, dark eyelashes trembled like candles in the wind. Damn it! Adeshan cursed under her breath, frustration evident in her tone. Turning her head away, Adeshan felt blood dripping from her chewed lips. She couldn't bear to watch Ronan die. Despite thinking that she had become sufficiently numb after enduring 3 lives of hardship, it seemed that some traces of human emotions still remained. Corporal, Adeshan called out softly, her voice heavy with emotion. Just then, a vague voice emanated from Ronan's mouth, startling Adeshan. Corporal, you're alive! Adeshan exclaimed with surprise. The sound of rain stopped, Ronan muttered weakly. Adeshan furrowed her brow, puzzled by Ronan's words. Adeshan closed her mouth and listened intently. The constant drumming sound that had been echoing ceaselessly against the ceiling had vanished. Beams of light streamed through the gaps in the rocks, casting a reddish hue. Yeah, it looks like the rain has stopped, Adeshan confirmed. That's strange, Ronan remarked. What do you mean by strange? What's the matter? Adeshan began to question, but was interrupted by a sudden boom. Suddenly, a thunderous noise, as if the earth and sky were trembling, resonated. Intense beams of light showered down upon the two of them. What? Adeshan exclaimed, urgency coloring her voice. Adeshan urgently raised her head, and her eyes widened in shock. The rocks that had acted as a ceiling were gone, revealing the evening sky ablaze with fiery colors. Her expression contorted as her gaze reached the sky, where an unbelievable scene unfolded before her. No way, Adeshan whispered in disbelief. Countless giants were descending from the blazing sky. They swept away the clouds and halted the rain with their mighty wings. Their flapping created a gale that stirred up the surroundings, causing Adeshan's hair to flutter like flames in the blowing wind. The 3 giants weren't the end of it, Adeshan muttered, her voice laced with helplessness. She gazed at the descending giants with a sense of dread. Among them were giants with 6 or even 8 wings, appearing stronger than a Hayute at first glance. Am I going to fail this time, too? Adeshan whispered to herself, a hint of doubt creeping into her voice. A giant descending directly above them swung its arm, launching a spear made of light directly towards Adeshan. She closed her eyes with resignation, feeling helpless to evade or resist. Then, a shadow passed in front of her. With a sharp splitting sound, the spear of light was cleaved in half. Adeshan opened her eyes to see Ronan standing before her, tightly gripping her sword in his trembling hand. Corporal, Adeshan called out, her voice tinged with urgency. Do you know any flame or wind magic? Anything that can lift me up? Ronan asked desperately. Flame magic, Adeshan repeated, surprised by his request. Damn it! My sword can't reach them from here, Ronan exclaimed, his voice strained with effort. With each ragged breath Ronan took, the pungent scent of blood filled the air, indicating that he had far exceeded his limits. Yet, he continued to contemplate swinging his sword at the descending giants. My sword won't reach them from here, Adeshan realized, snapping back to her senses. Without hesitation, she propelled herself towards Ronan, throwing her body against his. Behind them, a steep slope awaited. The two of them tumbled down the slope, intertwined in a chaotic jumble of limbs. When they finally reached flat ground, Adeshan found herself straddling Ronan's chest. Ronan, flustered and alarmed, shouted, What are you doing? Get off me, right now! Ugh! His pupils constricted as Adeshan's lips covered his own, and her loose hair tickled his nose and eyes. A cold, bead-like object slipped into Ronan's mouth along with saliva, its unfamiliar metallic taste mingling with bitterness. Adeshan used her tongue to push the bead inside his mouth before withdrawing her lips. Swallow, she instructed. Ronan managed to do so in astonishment, feeling the bead descend down his throat. Meanwhile, in the sky above, dozens of giants were forming a circular formation, preparing to hurl their spears. Adeshan pressed her forehead against Ronan's and spoke in a hushed tone. What you just swallowed is a time-reversing bead. It's the secret that allowed me, who was once a daughter of a layman, to become a Grand General. I lived 3 lifetimes using this. It can rewind time a total of 4 times, and I've already used it 3 times except for 1. You can guess the reason without me saying, right? Adeshan said, nodding towards the sky. The light around them was gathering into the shape of spears in the hands of the giants. I've decided to count on you. Your peculiar combat skills, which even I, who have lived through 3 lifetimes, couldn't comprehend. I think they hold the key to averting the end. If you want to learn, go to Filion Academy. It's a place where extraordinary talents gather, so it's bound to be helpful, Adeshan explained. What are you blabbering about now? Ronan exclaimed, his voice filled with frustration. That's how it might sound to you. I thought the same at first. Adeshan trailed off, her voice tinged with uncertainty. As Adeshan finished her sentence, a deluge of rain suddenly poured down from the sky. Spears existed in quantities matching the number of giants. Even with their wings, it seemed impossible to evade them. By the way, if we meet again, can you tell me to not do anything stupid and just become a tailor? Adeshan asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Adeshan! Ronan cried out, his heart racing. His vision turned white as their eyes met for a final time. The last image he saw of her was her wearing a strange expression, neither smiling nor crying. I've tried everything possible, but nothing seems to work, Ronan muttered in despair. The flying spear pierced through both of them simultaneously. Ronan shot up from the ground like a rocket, his chest heaving as he gasped for breath. He frantically looked around, expecting to find a gaping hole where he'd been struck. Where is this? He muttered, his voice trembling with confusion. Scanning his surroundings, Ronan struggled to catch his breath. The nightmarish battlefield had vanished, replaced by a tranquil, grassy hillside that smelled of meadows. Beside him lay a long stick, like the ones used for herding sheep. Below the hill, a quaint village nestled, its charm juxtaposed against the serene river that curved alongside it, where children played on makeshift rafts. It didn't take long for memories to flood back. Ronan whispered his hometown's name, as if invoking the spirits of the departed. Nimbutan. It felt as though he had just emerged from a lengthy slumber. Ronan reached up and gingerly touched his lips, the sensation of the unexpected kiss still vivid in his mind. Adeshan's words about the time-reversing treasure echoed in his thoughts. Did I really return to the past? He pondered aloud. He prodded his body all over, confirming it was still the physique of a young boy. Ronan pinched his thigh, twirled in the air, and only then did he realize that the current situation wasn't a dream. I've really come back, Ronan muttered to himself, his voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and realization. Memories overwhelmed him like a flood, engulfing his senses. He recalled the taste of the food he had eaten, the melodies of the songs he loved, the vast expanse of the starry sky he had admired during his travels, and the faces of the people he had lost forever. And then, amidst it all, sister. Suddenly, the image of a familiar face emerged in his mind, reminding him that his return to the past meant that she was still alive. His only family. His gentle sister, who had died without the chance to reunite with her runaway little brother, and who had ultimately perished at the hands of the giants. Sister. Irit, Ronan murmured softly, a pang of sorrow gripping his heart as he tightened his grip on the stick. His strides, initially brisk, soon turned into a determined sprint. Before long, his childhood home came into view. But just as he was about to descend the hill, a commotion caught his attention, halting his steps. Bring it on time. You need to bring the money. No way. I'm sorry. At the top of a nearby hill, a group of boys around Ronan's age surrounded a child who appeared to be no more than 10 years old, taunting and harassing him. Among the jeering faces, Ronan recognized a few familiar ones. Who's that guy? One of them seemed oddly familiar, a boy with vibrant red hair who stood out due to his small stature. Ronan racked his brain, trying to recall past memories. Wasn't he a magician? Ronan muttered to himself as he shifted his steps. Even if not for a cell, he couldn't stand to witness kids bullying other kids. He picked up a stick and swung it experimentally, the satisfying sound echoing through the air.